Welcome to the International Schools Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Taylor, and on the podcast we discuss all aspects of technology and life in international schools, with new episodes live every 2 weeks. We focus on people currently working in international schools, and we talk about life in their current country, and then we dive into some specific topics. The podcast is sponsored by Apps Events. We're a Google for Education partner and made up of former educators, all experts in helping schools integrate Google into their schools and classrooms. All training is customized for every school to make sure it has lasting impact. We're also experts on online virtual Google training, and we can deliver all our certification bootcamps and training completely online to schools. We have teams in Europe and the Middle East, Asia and the US, and we can help you wherever you are. Check it out over at appsevents.com. We're also delighted to say we're now an ISTE partner, and we're delivering the ISTE Certified Educator worldwide with our subsidiary AE Learning. ISTE certification is a pedagogy-focused, vendor-neutral, professional certification aimed at educators wishing to transform their EdTech practice. We run 2-day certification bootcamps, which are amazing fun, great networking, and will give you a huge boost both to your career and for your school. Get all the info at aelearninglab.com. Finally, the podcast is brought to you by Acer for Education. People ask us what Chromebooks and Windows laptops we recommend for schools, and after literally trying them all, we always recommend Acer. If you'd like to get more information, please just leave your email at gg.gg/Acer Education, and we'll get straight back to you. We go to Acer HQ in Taiwan every year to be part of product discussions, and they are genuinely the best thought out, cost-effective, and durable devices out there. And now, on to the interview. Hello, welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be talking to Casey von Neumann. Casey is based in the US, in Atlanta, and she's actually founded a school, which is a fascinating topic to me, a small school. And she was a former teacher, and she's done a few entrepreneurial things. So I'm really fascinated to hear the story of how this came about and what you've been up to. So welcome to the podcast, Casey.
Thank you.
Cool. So Casey, we were just talking, obviously we're in COVID time now. We're recording this 28th of July, 2020. I always say that because people find the podcast like a year later or something, and it's kind of, you got to kind of ground it. But you were saying you're in Maine now. You live in Atlanta, but was that the COVID risk? Was the reason you left Atlanta temporarily?
Actually, I've been transitioning for the past couple of years to being more location independent. And so when my husband wanted to do an apprenticeship in wooden boat building at the apprentice shop in Maine, a special 2-year program, then I was able to move from Atlanta and kind of be a few weeks in Maine, then a few weeks in Atlanta, and I was going back and forth for about 6 months.
Sure.
And then when COVID hit, then I was pretty much stuck in Maine.
Yeah. So let's get into your story then. So how did it all start? I was looking at your LinkedIn page, and I think you studied music at university, or music education. Is that right? Is that where it started?
I did. Originally from Maine, and so I studied music education here in Maine. Taught public school for 1 year. That was really not for me. I'm kind of allergic to bureaucracy. Being a teacher was something I was really passionate about, and I was passionate about music, and I thought, let's just combine those two. But I was sort of disillusioned with the public school experience because I wanted to have more meaningful relationships with the students. This is the kind of thing that I was at 2 schools teaching 500 kids.
So you were like a floating resource. You didn't work in you would go to different schools in the district, basically.
Exactly.
Right. And what didn't you like about the bureaucracy? Like what actually was it? Was it kind of the leadership, or what were the problems like that you found?
I worked at a really well-run school, a couple well-run schools, but it was just some of the things that seemed backward to me. Like, for instance, the idea that here's your budget and you have to spend all of the dollars of the budget or else you won't get that budget next year.
That's a strange way, yeah. It's when people like us as business owners, it's counterintuitive, like, that kind of thinking,
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So did you like, you decided pretty quick? I mean, a year was like, did you already know before the end of the year, this is it, I don't want to work in a public school?
Yeah, I found myself just going online every day and looking at far-flung destinations and just feeling trapped in my situation and just realizing that it wasn't going to be sustainable in the long term.
Right. So did you go traveling? Like what was the next move?
Yeah, the next move was then 9/11 happened.
All right.
So that kind of slowed me down in terms of travel, but I did, look for a city to move to, and I decided Atlanta would be a nice place to set up shop.
Yeah.
It's not as established as some other major American cities. And so when I decided that I wanted to teach music lessons, if you go to Boston or New York, it's like, oh, well, we already take music lessons at this place that was founded in 1835. Whereas Atlanta really has only come of age due to air conditioning. It's a newer city, and there's still a lot of room for good ideas and new ideas and entrepreneurial spirit. So I found that I was able to get established very quickly as a freelance music teacher, just teaching music lessons to kids and adults, that within a few months I was up to full time with all of the students that I could really handle, which I think is sort of a unique aspect of the timing and the particular neighborhood that I chose.
And were you like just working from home, or did you rent a place, or how were you running it as a freelance teacher?
I had some studio space. I also went to people's homes. I had people come to my home. I had this dinky little apartment. And so I would teach music lessons. I would teach piano lessons in the bedroom, and then guitar lessons in the living room where there's a little more space.
Yeah. And how did you, I'm curious, how did you grow that? Like, how were you getting customers? Were you just advertising in local papers? Was it old school or online or what?
Yeah, it was pretty old school, like online. I mean, this was like the early 2000s, so online wasn't well established. So I did have a website to direct people to, but I was putting up flyers in coffee shops. The classic flyers with the little pull-off tabs for your phone number. That's how I started.
I think that still works for certain things. We were looking for something, and I lived just outside Prague in Czech Republic, and there's a supermarket just down the road from my house, and there's always these flyers on them. I've taken a few, torn off a few pieces of paper from there, I mean, it still works, I think, for certain businesses.
Yeah, I had postcards. I went and put postcards on people's doors. You can't put them in the mailbox. It's not legal. So
Right.
You put them on their mailbox or on their door. But I got some leads from that developed into these lifelong relationships and friendships with the students that I met that way. So it actually worked really well. And of course, then it's the sort of tree of referrals because people are always looking for someone who's good at what they do. So the parents tell their friends, and then it spreads from there.
It's funny, I was staying in San Francisco a couple of years ago, and I was walking past this place. It was School of Rock. It was like, rock, some music school for kids. And they had this huge banner, and it said, are you worried your kids are not going to be in a cool band? We can help. I thought, that was cool. That was good marketing. I liked it.
Yeah.
They'll solve the problem. But so what was the next stage, Jen? You started doing this, and then how did you kind of grow this to be kind of a business, or did it just stay as just you?
I wasn't really intending to grow it into a larger business. So if I had been intentional about that, it might have happened faster. But It took about 5 years, and then I was starting to get more referrals than I could handle. And I was just telling them, okay, well, I can take you on for the summer, but after that, I have no one to refer you to, and I'm full. And they just went, okay, we'll take lessons with you for the summer. And so I thought there was a real opportunity there. So I looked for teachers who would come to the neighborhood and teach, and I provided a studio space for them. And so it grew rapidly from there.
I was going to say, and how long did it take you to kind of approximately what you were earning working for the school district to make that freelancing? Did that happen pretty quick, or did it take a while?
Yeah, I was making so little at the school district, frankly, that it only took about 5 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
From moving to town to pretty much matching my income, it took about 5 months.
Oh wow, cool. Okay. So what was next on the next stage of what you were doing?
So the school grew, the music school. It's called Eclectic Music. So we have lessons, camps, and classes. But I did get to the point where I was looking for something else, and I was paying attention to the state of education in the city, particularly the public schools. And during the 2011 to 2012 school year, they went through this redistricting process where they were trying to decide which kids would go to which elementary schools that would feed into which middle schools and high schools. And it was a very contentious process. They asked for a lot of community feedback, which just ended up starting a lot of fights online. Right. So people were becoming disillusioned with the state of public education in the city, which is much like what's happening now. And so I realized, well, I've got these buildings for my music school, and they're pretty much empty till 3 p.m. when the music lessons start, because most of the people are having music lessons after school and after work. So I said, hey, I would love to host some students. I would like to homeschool these kids. In my state, in Georgia, you can hire a tutor to homeschool your child. Right. So I said, hire me as your tutor. And I'm looking for a small group of kids. Who's interested in that? And I reached out to just a handful of families and I said, let me know if you know someone who might be interested in that. And just pitch the idea, very, very soft sell. And a lot of people said, yeah, no, we'd be interested. And so we had a meeting, and within a couple of weeks, we had 8 or 9 families who were signed on. And so we started in the fall of 2012 with 12 students. And so that became the Little Middle School. And so that exists today. We're now going into our 9th year. And we've got, I think, 5 teachers, about 20-something students. We've kept it small deliberately, just to keep it that intimate space where the kids can really feel a sense of belonging. We have developed our own curriculum and just really enjoying that. So I've kind of come full circle to end up teaching all of these academic subjects in addition to
music. So I want to there's a lot to talk about there. So obviously you started it was just you, doing music lessons. How did that transition to being a school? Like what were the stages like? How did you go through did you just decide you wanted to do a school and who did you hire first? Did you rent a building? Like, I'm just curious, like that, how you went from you as a solo person just doing music to running a whole middle school.
Yeah, I found when I hired the teachers, I found spaces for them to teach in.
So you hired all the teachers that you had like 5 straight away, did you? You just went?
No, for the middle school, I already had the space from the music school. So then I was just teaching solo while my team of admins ran the music school. So then I was working and focusing on the middle school program. And then the second year I brought on an assistant, and then the third year I brought on a couple more teachers, and have experimented over the years with larger staff, smaller staff, more specialized team, hiring people with master's degrees versus hiring people that we can train from the ground up. And so we found that the latter works the best. We really enjoy training people in our approach, which is a little different than.
And do you hire people who've got like a teacher's license, like a state of Georgia teaching license?
No, I prefer it without.
Right. Okay. And that's not a requirement. Like you don't have to do that. You can teach without a license, can you?
No. Yeah, you can. For homeschool, you can teach without a certification. Yeah. And so you have to have. Well, if you're going to educate other people's children, you have to have a college degree, I think. Yeah. But I mean, I think to homeschool, you really just need a high school diploma. Right. So it's not every state is the same. This is something that in the United States is very subject to the laws of the individual 50 states. So Georgia is one of the ones that is a bit more liberal in its approach. There's many homeschoolers, and they form a powerful lobby at the state level. So they have a lot of freedom.
So there's a homeschool lobby in Georgia, then, isn't it? It's that big.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you I mean, I'm curious, in the beginning, how many students did you have, and how did you figure out your pricing? Like, did you look at whatever? Is it like a small schools or tiny school? Is there a name for this kind of movement? Is it like something above homeschooling?
Yeah, some people will call it a homeschool group, or some people will call it a micro school.
So how did you figure out the pricing? Like, what you were going to charge for this?
Just experimentation. I have always kind of accidentally kind of backed into whatever the thing that I was doing. It's like, oh, this will be fun. And I forget the profit part of it. So then I have to kind of experiment until I can find that formula. So we started with something that it was sort of like, here's the bare minimum to get people to say yes to the idea. But even by the time we were done admitting students for that first year, we had already gone up on the price. And then we've just been, we want to keep it competitive. Right now our pricing is about half what the area private schools are. Right. But we also have a lot of students who come from public school and who never thought they would leave the public school, but they're in a situation that they're really looking for more of an individualized approach or a safer environment. So we're wanting to keep it in reach of those coming from public school.
When you say safer environment, is there actually some dangerous schools in Georgia and Atlanta? I mean, as in, like, is it violence and things like that, or what are the risks?
There's some violence. there's, kids getting in fights at the cafeteria. These are really large public schools. The public schools have an incredibly important job.
Yeah.
A lot of kids, they get 2 meals a day, and both of those are meals that they get free at their local school. So it's an incredibly important role, but the schools are not really set up to meet individual emotional needs. That's just not their job.
Yeah.
So there is definitely, there are fights that will break out, because if you bring that many adolescents together, there's going to be some of that.
How big is it? What's like a big school in Atlanta, like 2,000 people or something like that?
Well, it's only 3 grades, so it'll be like
Right.
K through 8. They're changing it right now. They just built a new school, so it'll be changing. But a lot of the schools are 1,100.
Yeah,
1,100, 1,300 kids.
Middle school.
Yeah. So there's, we see a lot of kids who are anxious, worried about going to school, and they're very sensitive to what's happening around them. So if somebody else is getting in trouble, they really feel it. So, I want to be, really respectful of the fact that I could not do what the public schools are doing. Sure. I could not be an administrator in that context. I don't know if I could be a teacher in that context. What they do is really difficult, and they're tasked with a huge challenge, and they rise to that challenge.
Sure.
So what we can offer is very different and very specific, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to offer that to the people who choose it.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that I'm not taking away from the public schools or criticizing them, because ultimately they're absolutely critical for the functioning of our society, as we've seen.
And how many students do you have in your school now?
We just have, it ranges between like 22 to 27. We've deliberately kept it small.
And what do they do after they finish your middle school? Do they go to like a public school or private school, or?
A lot of them do. A lot of them will go back to the local public schools. And they're poised for success. I mean, some of these high schools just have incredible resources, incredible extracurricular activities, and really strong academic programs. And a lot of times, as we know from our own experiences as adolescents, by the time you get to high school, some of the social challenges have kind of shaken out, and people know who they are. They're able to approach. We love to send our rising ninth graders to school with confidence, that they feel like they can take charge of their own education. They know what kind of friends they're looking for. They know what kind of programs they want to get involved in, and they're ready.
And how do you deal with things like sports, for example, with such a small school? Do you work with external sports teams, or do you just not have a sports program at all?
We don't have a sports program per se. We are fortunate to be in a city where there's lots of club teams throughout the city. A lot of times by middle school, kids are already established in their sports. Yeah. And so then they just can continue.
Right. But you don't do anything like any groups kind of activities or anything like that? Like,
we do. It's just not formal sports teams, but the kids will, under normal circumstances, the kids will play basketball every day at lunch. We take retreats where we do rock climbing. We go play capture the flag out in the field. We do a lot of recreational activities. We'll do some yoga. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Like, what's next for you? Like, what are you thinking? Obviously, you're running your music school. You're doing this. Anything else? Any other business projects you've got on? Just these 2 things? No, not just these 2 things, but is that all you do?
As I mentioned, just really wanting to become a little more location independent. A couple years ago, I had the sense that, everything, my entire livelihood is wrapped up with in-person programming in one city, working with children. Sure. And I didn't know that COVID was coming, but I definitely felt a little bit of vulnerability there. So I decided that I was going to start an online school, which is called the Rulerless School. And so I started that last year. I think it was February of 2019. And so that's bringing the curriculum we've developed at the Little Middle School to a wider audience. So it's still very small. It's in the beginning stages. I'm not in this situation where I'm like, hey, everybody, if you don't want to go back to your regular school, we've got this online program, because it's very small. It's bespoke. We have room for like 3 more kids this fall. But that's been a lot of fun to work on creating those innovations, because I had no idea how necessary they would become when we had to bring all of our students online this past March due to the coronavirus. So So that's been a lot of fun to really work on using tools to make learning online effective and to help foster a sense of connection and community, even despite not being able to meet in person.
Are you using the same teachers or different teachers for the online school?
Different teachers, although there's some overlap, as the teachers that I've been working with for a while are onboarding and training the new ones. So it's really exciting to see the community grow.
I'm fascinated by this. I've looked at doing some things around starting online schools and stuff. And I've done a bit of teaching online. I'd actually like to do, I was thinking recently, I'd like to do I've done some bit of business teaching, and I'd love to do that online, part-time, if I could find a school where I could do a few hours a week and not have it being too much. But I think online schooling is fascinating, and it's only going to be a huge growth sector, in education going forward.
It is. And in a way, what I see us doing as being coaches, that a lot of instruction, as we know, I mean, you can learn anything you want on YouTube or by reading a book, imagine that. But having somebody to be with you and coach you through the process and help you when you're frustrated and tell you what this is normal and just keep going. So we really see that we're partnering with our students to help them walk through the process, no matter what classes they might be taking online, that we're adding that human element of really working directly with students and coaching them through the challenges and helping them to achieve their ambitions. So that's a lot of fun. It's like a little bit of a coaching relationship, as opposed to just sign on to this massive lecture course and just be a face in the crowd.
And how many hours a day are you doing like online teaching for the online school, rulerless school?
It depends. I mean, right now it's summertime, so we only have a few students who are doing summer programs with us. Yeah. As the leader, I mean, I would say, it varies like any entrepreneur. I mean, some days, it's like 3 hours and I'm kind of playing hooky. And then other times I'm all in and it's 10, 12-hour days. So there's some seasonality to it. And I really love working with my team and mentoring them. So I really invest heavily in that. We can then turn around and provide that kind of mentorship for our students.
Cool. Well, that's a great place to finish. So really fascinating. I know we had to cut it a bit short. We had a mix up on our times earlier, but that's good. We've got the whole story, and it's really interesting. Where can people find you online if they want to get in touch for any reason?
Thank you. My blog is at wearerulerless.com. So I write 5 articles a week, every weekday. And so that's some context for my educational philosophy and kind of bringing all of my different projects together. I'm also very interested in entrepreneurship and supporting entrepreneurs, especially educational entrepreneurs.
Definitely. Well, that's the podcast. We have a lot of educated entrepreneurs listen to this, and I should mention, we're both in the same entrepreneurs group called the Dynamite Circle, which is how we got in touch. I saw some comment you made about starting a school. So but fascinating. Great to talk, Casey, and all the best with everything you do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dan. It's great to talk to you.